unaware
Yo,
of
Robert.
Rahobat,
Peace,
Shalom,
peace.
Hotep, all of that. Achuma Chukma, man. uh, um, I'm talking about the ancients and stars. I actually started this off talking about mummies. Um, and the ancient Egyptian word for a mummy is a sa, right? But that's also the word
Right.
for the one of the oldest gods in ancient Egypt in pre-dynastic times, which is known as Sa, which was the father of the gods. Um, and this Sa relates to um, Orion, and also some people say Lepus as well too, which is a nebula, right? And now there's a reason why the Sa, Orion in this nebula, and Lepus in this nebula would be correlated to the mummy, which is also called the Sa, right? And why you would be shrouded, right, in this cloth, right? Because just the way like Orion
Right.
is clouded in this nebula and wrapped up. Um, there's a significance to this, and I was going into the story of one of the original stories of the original Trinity, which was Sa, Sopdet, and Sopdu. Before there was Isis, Osiris, and Horus. Before there was Amun, there was Sa. Amun comes from Libya. Um, Asar, Aset, they come more from the lands of Nubia. But Sa, Sopdet, and Sopdu were from the original inhabitants of that particular place, right? And this was one of the original trinities, which deals with Orion, Sirius, right, and Venus, who to them Venus was a male and not a female, which was Sopdu. Sopdu was Venus. Sopdet was was um Sirius, right? So I was going to the stories and how that they literally thought that they would become an aku, a light body, or ultimately a star. And one way that we knew that that the pharaoh or also this word Sa dealt with a dignitary, a prominent figure, a nobleman, right? So in the beginning, only noble people would even be able to be mummified. But one way you knew that these people had correctly traversed the stars was when a new star would appear in the sky that they could see, and they would know that this person had become a sa, had become a star, right? And this was the original celebrity. These noblemen that made it to this space of transmutation, of becoming a star, a literal star. Before, like I said before, people became celebrities. The idea of even wanting to become a celebrity, wanting to become a star, goes back to this ancient mythos that was believed back then, right? Um, so when it what did what teachings does what does Malachi Z. York say about either Orion, Sirius, or Venus that in any way kind of relates to anything Trinitarian, or anything about transmutation, or anything about the importance of those particular bodies in the heavens?
Okay, so that's a good question. So as far as Trinitarian, I'm not too sure as far as those three put together: Orion, Sirius, Osiris, and Venus. However, he did in the Man from Planet Risk book or scroll go into a great detail about Venus and beings who came from it, like Nikola Tesla was said to be from it, or he was actually supposed to have been birthed on one
Mm.
of the crafts, and then he was brought to Earth from his parents being Venusians, or Venusians as they might call them, or Venusians. Val Thor was also said to have been from the planet Venus, and Nikola Tesla was one of the people who went to war with these big companies, tech companies, and the JP Morgans and the rest of them when it came to his introductions to society and to the world, like anti-war machines, right? Which really the anti-war machine wasn't necessarily a machine. It was a science about
Mm.
free energy, right? And how you could take the planet and its people out of the dark ages into the golden ages just by introducing a science like that, where people wouldn't have to be worried about oil production and the cost of all of that. Of course, that would be ideal for people who don't own those big businesses. But for people like JP Morgan, that wasn't good, because he was challenging the cell phone line thing, the telephone lines, all of that, where he was speaking about Wi-Fi way before people had Wi-Fi. This is Nikola Tesla, right? He also had the Tesla scope and the interplanetary communication devices that he was utilizing to communicate with people who were back on Venus. So what would be the point there? That's one of the homes, all right, of the star people. Star people just meant people who came from the cosmos. All right, just how people say came from heaven now, Jesus came from up there, all the up there stuff. Stars, cosmos, heavens, all of that was speaking about people who were extraterrestrials, okay, that came into the earth plane. And a lot of times they either brought scientists or they brought genes that wound up expressing in such a way that they became scientists, as they were literally superman beyond human beings, where a lot of them were more advanced than human beings are
Yeah.
genetically. You understand? So that was what was known about Venus as one of the stops as you traveling through the solar system also, where you have Mars and all these other different planets where people are supposed to stop at. Some people are going to stop and get off and stay there. Some people are going to stop there for a while, for a second, like how they spoke of the 144,000 being taken up, but only for a set amount of time, and then brought back to the planet after they had been taught for 1,000 years. And that's when you get into the science of even El Quran and the Bible. Helios Biblos explains about the time differences as far as atmosphere and what happens when you get outside of the Earth's atmosphere, right? So they'll say what a day to us is 1,000 years to God, or those Elohim, those who sit outside of the time belt that we're in. Okay, with all of this deals with just time dilation theory and general relativity, all of that. Okay, as it goes hand in hand with the time that you're observing as a human being while you're on the earth is different when you're on another planet. Like if Mercury's year, all right, it's 88 days, meaning its revolution is 88 days, let's just say that, then it will be different when you're on the planet Mercury observing a day than it would be you observing it here, just with the reality alone. And then you have to deal with the calculation thereof when you're saying 88 versus 365 in quote-unquote Earth years. This is just speaking about how time varies when you're on different
Right.
realms or different abodes.
Right.
You understand? So these star people came from a realm or realms where time moved quicker because they were literally further out than gravitational points like the planets, right? So the closer you get to a gravitational point, all right, that is at a certain strength, slower time moves, because things that are closer to that gravitational point, according to time dilation theory, move slower. Time moves slower there also, as time is a tangible thing, which time and space, as you know, are a continuum. What's my point? You have Venus, you have Orion or Oranos, okay, or Uparanos, which was just saying what? Heaven, or a part of a constellation, where they were saying that people were from, where you have the pyramids, the Great Pyramids, lined up to it invertedly, saying that these doors or these stargates were supposed to be leading back to where the home was, which is why Kemar or Kemet, which is what it became, was speaking about a home away from home. Okay, like the Pleiades. They said literally, this is our home away from home. They were building something that looked like where they were from in another world or another realm. Like you see, Egypt has pyramids, and then you come over here into America or Tamaray, Egypt of the West, and you see pyramids over here. Well, if I'm from Egypt and I come over here to America and I build pyramids, I'm building a home away from home, meaning I'm building a civilization that's similar to what I'm familiar with in another world. You understand? Which is what human beings do anyway. Anytime we go over and build another building, another skyscraper that looks the same or similar, have a similar structure, we're building buildings that are similar to where we are originally from. That's home away from home. So to keep it simple, even when it comes to Sirius, because Sirius is supposed to be like Siptu, there's a planet, right? That's a part of the star system where you have a resting point. Even the word Sibatu, Sibata, Sabat or sabbatical, all these words mean to rest, okay? There's a resting point before you get to that place that was of highest provision, which is what has been provided for you. Now I go and prepare a place for you, right? It's called rizak or risk, okay? And in El Quran, they speak about rizak also as a provision place. So a lot of people thought it was just a word that was made up. No, neither is Ilion. Ilion isn't made up either. It's just saying a place that is the highest point that you would be going to. So if you go to that 19th galaxy Ilion, or you go to that planet Risk, you're speaking about another abode that's off planet. So whether you're speaking of Orion, Sirius, or you're speaking about Venus, you're speaking about 3 different places or locations where people live and have come from and gone back to. So they made a spectacle of these things, and people thought, oh, these are Sabians. That's what it's literally called. Sabians, okay, those who worship the stars, right? That's what they thought. So they just worshiping the stars. No, the whole key was to get out of star worship. What were prayers for? I broke this down and built it up for people. When you saying a prayer, what you're really doing is you're worshiping, meaning what? You're sending words up to a ship. When there was somebody who prayed, when it came down to Tahudi or Jahudi, right? They prayed up and said, yo, I need help. I'm surrounded by enemies. Okay, it was for something to be done in that moment. They sent words up to a ship. So you watch movies, I landed with this, like E.T., where he talks about being right there in a little boy's forehead. He said, I'll be right there, or I'll be right here. Speaking to him telepathically, certain people were going through their life to be able to develop the telepathic communication necessary, or if they couldn't do it through the biological advancements, what they had to do was do it through technological advancements, like Nikola Tesla, where he created that interplanetary communication device to speak to other people that were off planet. If you couldn't do it technologically, you had to do it biologically, where you either had to be able to communicate with those who were off planet, or they had to be able to communicate with you. If people think it's crazy, go look at the technology that these so-called governments are setting up, like SETI. And why you think they call it that? Search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And they're looking for messages because they know messages are being sent out. And their thing is they're trying to intercept those messages before they get to who it's for, so they will know whether or not there's a pending threat or existential threat coming to the planet Earth or any of their civilizations. So all of this was set up to speak about abodes off planet and people who came from them and
Right.
who
So
may return
now
one day.
when we understand how light works, right? Light is traveling at light speed. And we literally have planets, bodies that are out there that are light years away, right? Like for instance, I was talking about one of the eldest stars, one of the oldest stars in the universe, over 14 billion years old, is a star called the Methuselah star. It is literally 190 light years away, right? Just imagine how long it takes light from the Methuselah star to make it to the planet Earth, right? Think of Saturn. How long does it take light to come from Saturn to us, right? By the time this light hits you, right, it's already an older message. It's already old. Some of these lights are years old by the time it makes it to you. Some of these lights are months old, weeks old, days old. Now here's the importance of the light body. There's an importance to the light body, right? Well, how can this is where revelation, epiphany really comes from. It comes from being able to capture the light, right? Because light is a symbol of knowledge. Being able to capture the light even before the light even hits here. Well, how do I capture light or information that most people aren't privy to? How do I get, see, this is where revelation comes in at, right? Because you're receiving message to your light body. You're not receiving message to your conscious self, to the degree of consciousness that I'm speaking of as the brain functioning, right? You're actually receiving a message to the light body from an outside source, right? That you are already tethered to, right? So this is the difference between a person that is astute, a person that is seped, a person that's sharp, right? That's brilliant. This is why they're considered brilliant. This is why they're bright, right? Because they have access to a knowledge or have obtained a knowledge that you haven't, right? Now, this is why one of the first forms of idolatry was star worship. Star worship was one of the first forms of idolatry, one of the first forms of witchcraft, one of the original forms of witchcraft, because the people that begin to understand the cycles and begin to understand the movement of the heavens, they possessed a knowledge that the average person didn't. If I understand the processions of the heavens, then I understand how agriculture works. Then I understand how natural phenomena works. Then I understand when to plant, when to harvest, right? I begin to get a knowledge that most people aren't privy to. But not only that, not only the knowledge of just seeing how the earth is going through its processions, right? But it also opens my mind up. It opens my mind up to higher thought, because there's a connection to this, because we're ultimately talking about life and the formation of life, and not just the formation of life, but the cyclical motion of life, from birth to life to death to resurrection. I begin to get an understanding about life that the average person that isn't insightful doesn't have. So I become the first wise one. I become the first astute. And now I can see this. Now, some people, they saw this as the gods. They said, you know what? These are the gods. It took a while for some to say, well, there had to be a causer of this phenomenon. But these were some of the first people that will worship, people that understood the stars, understood the processions of them, right? So now when you take this into consideration, right, think about it. Would a person like Malachi Z. York be as prominent of a figure if he did not possess certain knowledge of the stars? He wouldn't. The fact that he was observant, right, and understood a certain level of the processions of the stars and things like that put him at a level to where some see him and view him the way that they view him, right? When we go into the understanding of not just the stars, but that points us to things about ourselves, right? Because we embody the same things that the stars do, right? You possess the elements of the stars. That is in your body, right? Now going back to the Pharaoh, and I want before I even go there, because I don't want to take up a lot of time. Do you when you study, I don't know if you study astrology, Faise, but they deal with 12 constellations. I was asking someone who was just on here who's really astute in astrology, but he had to leave. Why do they only deal with 12 constellations when the ancients dealt with 48 constellations, and modern scholarship understands that there are 88 constellations that they're working with? Why do you think astrology has been limited to just 12 constellations? Is there a reasoning behind that to you that you've observed?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's as simple as dealing with how time is measured by human beings, right? Because in all actuality, you're only dealing with cycles. You're only dealing with things moving around and around and around, or moving from one point to another point, back to the first point, to another point, back to the first point, to another point. And that's how this reality moves, from negatives to positives, to protons, electrons, and neutrons. All right. There is a cycle of life, and human beings have taken that cycle and mapped it out across the world that they built, not necessarily the planet. For instance, if you had the ability to travel alongside the observational point of the sun, okay, without ever having to leave its sight or it leaving your sight, okay, you would never say, hey, it's nighttime, because you wouldn't have it in your perspective to even say, relatively speaking, that this is night. You would only be moving in accordance to what will be quote unquote called day, which would mean even day is relative. Because right now, as it's quote unquote nighttime for me, on other side of the planet, in another time zone as they call it, because there's no such thing really, but another time zone as they call it is daytime. But only thing that people will be calling day is the sun being visible to them. You understand? Or the light of that sun being visible to them. And night is the lack thereof. My point is, when we can look at the 12 and the 12 of the 24, which is the sacred number of this planet called Sector 24. All right. The 24, they say 24,000 this and diameter that, and 24 hours a day, and 24 all over this planet. You have the
Wait.
sacred
I
number
want you to pause.
24.
Wait,
Right. The
Faise, I
12
want
and
you
the
to pause
12.
right there. We got 10 more seconds. We left off at 24.
Copy.
We're going to come right back. I'm just going to end it because 5 seconds left. We're coming right back. About eating him up or anything like that. Like me and Faise, we build, periodically, and I love to hear his build. Faise is younger than me, and I remember being at that level and being standing out, standing out from amongst the crowd. I view Faise as one of those brothers that stand out amongst the crowd as well too. And that comes from not just a lot of book knowledge. It doesn't just come from book knowledge. It comes from applying the things that you that not only that you read, but things that were revealed to you from a different space, right? So see, when they're praying, I was in there meditating. You know what I'm saying? I was in there doing the work to bring about the transition, to bring about, so I was going through the alchemy. I was going through the transmutations. You know what I mean? It wasn't just enough to read the book. You know what I'm saying? It took a little bit more. Reading the books wasn't enough for me. And when you hear brothers like Faise, I know what it took to get to that space. I know exactly what it took. It took something. It took a level of sacrifice that many won't ever take. That many won't ever take. You'll never get to this space of transmuting the mind, not the brain, the mind, transmuting, right, to a different level of consciousness and awareness, to where you can become not just aware of certain things, but sensitive to the moments and sensitive to the movements. And when you become sensitive to the moments and sensitive to the movements, it gives you a different, even a different understanding of time. Gives you a different understanding of time, and events. Faise, you there? Wait, there he is. Let's get him back in here. So shout out to the brother Faise. I respect his. I really respect his journey. Damn.
Oh, you can hear me?
Where you at, Faise? I don't see you, bro.
That's what I'm saying. Is my shit.
Okay, there you go. Okay, yeah, there you go.
I might have to come back.
Okay, you left off at 24. You were explaining about the cycles in 24. Do you remember? Uh-oh. They got him in the Matrix. They got him in the Matrix again. Hopefully we'll get him in a second. They get him to come back. Here he goes. Let's try this again. Okay, are you there? Say the camera was turned on. Let me see. Maybe if it's on some stuff right now. He might just be in a place with a bad signal though. Who knows? There he is.
Yo, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with these people, man.
I don't see you on my screen, but I hear you.
That's interesting.
But can you guys see him? Everyone, people that's listening, can y'all hear? Can y'all see Faise? But you were talking about the 24, right?
Yo, Heavy, Can you start the live over?
Yeah,
Or is
yeah.
that
You want me
too
to start it over?
much? It keep glitching.
Okay, so let me start it over. All right,
Okay.
let's do that. I'm frying. You know what I'm saying? But not only am I frying fish, we out here frying some of y'all consciousness right now. Simmer saute. We're serving it up to you raw. Hibachi. You know, not hibachi, but charcuterie. You know what I mean? Giving y'all the charcuterie of consciousness right now. You know what I mean? So let's get everybody back. You know, let's get the brother Faise back. You know, yeah, we talking about the stars. You know, many people don't. They have their perspective of the stars. You know, they have their understanding, and I respect it. I love hearing people's different perspectives on the stars. You know, I think that's a dope thing. You know, their understanding, and then like I tell people, you know, I when I speak of the stars, I typically speak of it from an indigenous perspective. I typically speak of it from a place of also ancient Africa, and in particular ancient Kemet and Mende cosmology, which deals with you know Mandinka, Malinke, Bambata, Dogon, you know, all of these concepts. But you know, I love hearing. Y'all know me. I love people that are astute students. You know what I mean? Paige, let me know. I sent it out. Let me know if you got it or not. Let me see. Let me accept it again. Let me send it back out to you. Let's see if it comes through. Let me know if you got it. Let me know if you even got it. My house is smoky. I'm in here tearing stuff up, man. I'm a. When I cook, I'm messy. I leave all types of residue, right? Faze, did you get it? Did it say anything? Let me know. Let me know what it said. Let me try again from this perspective. Let me invite you from this way. There we
Roll
go.
back.
Oh, that there it is.
Okay.
So you good now?
Two, I should be. We should be.
Okay. Okay. All right. So once again, you left off at the space where you were talking about the 24. Um, do you remember?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, you can continue.
Okay, yeah, the basis of what I was explaining, because you were asking about why the 12 zodiacs. Now, I wasn't there when they did it. I don't know exactly the reason. From my observation, though, it appears that it's based off of the 12 and the 12. You have the 12, 12, and another 12. The 12 of the day, the 12 of the so-called day, the 12 of the so-called night, and the 12 of the months, right? When it comes to this particular type of system, where they say, oh, you know, you got 12, 12, 12, then you got 12 tribes, you got, you know, 12 sons, or there's 12 everywhere, 12 disciples. It's easier for them to build a world. The key word is world. Another word they use there, you're probably familiar with, is called olam. All right, where it's an age or a period of time, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
very easy. If you look at the word olam, also you get another word called elam, all right, which is dealing with a pole or a tree, okay, of a certain, like Ashira, how they had certain poles set up. And when we were measuring time with the sundials, we did use Asira, all right, or Asira meant in Sanskrit sun or fire or sundial. You understand? So when you're saying sundial, is what I'm meaning. Ashira, a pole is set up for shadows to cast and for you to tell time, as you call it, right? Where you say, okay, there are 12 hours in this day, there are 12 hours in the night. So my point is, it seems as though these zodiacs were set up to be some type of clock for the observers that are operating in that particular world, which means that all of their systems for profit, all of their businesses and homes of merchandise, all of their national setups and everything will go in alignment with whatever that time would be. Now, we have our own time, literally, as Nuwapians, we have our own time that's measured off of the 19. And let's, for instance, we won't say we have seconds. We'll say we have
Right.
firsts. Okay, we go based off of first. And it's a very key thing that people may not have paid attention to. A minute detail. Look at the word minute. We say minute. A minute detail is why would the first measurement of your time be second? Automatically, you just, in the conscious mind, set the time belt off because people start late. And then you have something called between the tick and the tock, where people say tick, tock, tick, tock. But because of their lack of accounting for that resting point in between, they can shift time whenever they want to and just alter the UTC. You understand? Or what they call the universal time clock. All right? They can just alter that whenever they want to. They're doing it now. They added leap seconds since the year 1972. They've been adding leap seconds, and they've been altering how many hours, how many days are appointed to each year since 1972. And they have to do that because the realm is speeding up. They even tell you the days are being shortened day by day. Every year you got shorter days in a year, which means that time is moving faster as that rotation is picking up. But if time is set in stone based off of these zodiac, how will you be able to do that? Which is why you might not remember, but you may. Remember when they started to introduce that 13th one? I think it was called Ophiuchus or something like that.
Ophiuchus, yeah.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
You might be 60 years from now, they might introduce 7 more because
Right.
they'll have to alter, or they might take some away. It'll be altered. The whole point of it is they have to maintain control over the masses in their world, meaning everyone who rotates around that pole, around that central point or that axis for the clock of that world. Would you watch? You ever seen the movie Dark Crystal?
Nah.
If you haven't, I suggest you watch it because one of the clocks was operating like in a spherical way where it had a whole bunch of gears and things that turned over and about, but it wasn't just a regular flat surface clock. But that was the clock of the universe that they were dealing with in that world or in that world.
Was it?
You
Is it?
understand what I'm
Was
saying?
it? What's it called? Dark Crystal.
Dark Crystal.
Is on Netflix.
I don't know
What is
where
it
it's
on?
at now. This
Okay.
came out a long time. Pop told us to watch it a long time ago. But I don't know where it's at now. But my point of saying all of that is the zodiac, anybody could pick constellations and just put these things together to form shapes. What they're doing is they're utilizing that mysterious phenomenon called starlight to help them track the world they're building. And anybody who buys into their time zones, anybody who buys into this is this month, this is that month, we're going to add another month here, we're going to take a month here, we're going to leap year this, leap year that. All it is not that you're adhering to, like you said, the light that's coming from these bodies, because the light gets to you late. And oftentimes you're dealing with these constellations. What happens if the bottom drops out of the Big Dipper? You understand?
Right.
Then it's no longer the Big Dipper. Well, then what is your time at that point? None of these things are set in stone. So then what they're doing is just making it be that, okay, 12 is the easiest number for them at that time, especially with things like the Gregorian calendar, to keep people in alignment with the world that they built. Does that make sense?
Let me give y'all something also that some of you may have not pondered upon or realized, even if you did ponder upon it. Why did they draw a connection between certain light bodies to make certain shapes? Like, why did they choose to link this star? Because you could have linked it with that star over there, but you chose to link it with this star and make this shape and make this thing. Understand this. These are your original sigils. You see, these are the original sigils. Some of y'all don't know the history of Kabbalah in Europe, so you go off of the grimoires and you go off of things of that nature, the lesser keys of Solomon. That was I could talk about that at another time and go into the history of Kabbalah in Europe. But what you are realizing is the first sigils that we saw and how these energies work together. They saw that these particular stars were forming energetic sigils, and energy was coming from this one to this one to this one, and they were interacting with each other in a particular way. These were your original sigils. They were your original sigils. Well, how does this work? Well, how would our people understand this? Do you not understand? How do you receive information? You receive information a few ways, right? One way is verbal communication, right? But another way that you receive information is sight, right? There are different levels to sight. I talk about this a lot, right? Most people, when they think of sight, they think of ocular. That's one form of sight, right? Well, what is ocular sight? It allows you to take in light, right? And then the brain allows you to see. Eyes don't allow you to see. The brain is what creates the imagery, not the eyes, right? So it pulls in information, it pulls in light, and the brain creates what you see, right? It creates what you see. Even a blind man can see. Even if a blind man didn't have ocular sight, he could still see because he still had other forms of sight as well. He had insight, hindsight, far sight, near sight, right? And all of these working together gives you a different thing, right? It allows you to create different levels of epiphanies, see different revelations and things of this nature. So what the ancestors could do, because there was something called stargazing. There was something we did called stargazing, right? And what was the point of stargazing? It wasn't just to look at the stars and say they're pretty. You see, the sun is a star. Some of you sun gaze, not realize you're stargazing, right? Well, what is the point of that? The point is you're taking in vital information. You're taking in vital information, right? And that information leads to revelation, things that are revealed to you. So the ancients, through the ancient practice of stargazing, they learned of these original sigils. They learned of how this planet is not that far away with our sight, but in actuality, they're distances away. But their magnetic fields, right, at some point coincide with this other, right? And energy is passed amongst these particular bodies. Energy is being passed, just like the same way, Saturn and Jupiter and things affect our magnetic field, right, at certain seasons and times, right, which allows certain energies to come to our planet, right? The same thing is happening in the cosmos. There's interaction between the stars. There's interaction, and the ancestors were able to see these interactions, right, through revelation, right? Can I see you, Faise? I don't know. Oh, but so through these interactions, it revealed to them, it gave them certain revelations and information about the heavens, not only about the heavens, but about the earth and about us, and how these sigils are marked in our bodies. There are certain energetic connections, but not only is it marked in our body, it plays a part in our brain from neuronic synapses. Do you know different thoughts travel different pathways in your brain, creating what you would see of as a sigil? Different thoughts travel different neurological pathways in order to field a feeling for you. It's literally doing that, and it's creating different sigils in your head. Each thought creates a different neuronic path, and it creates a different sigil in the brain, which allows you to feel a certain emotion, right? So what it does is there's the release of different hormones that are coming from the different glands, right, that give you what you know of as these emotions, right? And the ancestors linked the connection. They saw that there's a connection, right? That's why you have certain stars that were deemed to them as dark stars, They're dark stars. To the degree not that they're evil, but dark. They possess a hidden wisdom, right? Just like certain emotions to some of us have a hidden wisdom behind it, right? Some of you, if I ask you to conjure up the feeling of gratitude, you could probably remember what that feels like and allow that feeling to come over your body. What someone said, what ancestors? I don't know if your ancestors did that. I can't, once again, I'm the person who does not speak for everybody. I don't know what your culture is, so I can't speak for your culture. This is the way that my ancestors perceived it. Respectfully, I don't know what your ancestors were doing. You know, I only know about what mine were doing and the understanding of what they were attempting to do. You know what I mean? So when we get into this understanding, right? This was something that they mastered. They mastered a level of psychology, studying of the mind, right? Which came through deep introspect and meditation, right? Meditation is a form of measuring. It's a form of measuring. That's what the word medi, right? Med, right? This is the word. Even medicine is a form of measurement, right? You're measuring out doses. You're measuring medical, right? Medicine, right? All of this, all of this deals with a level of measurement, right? And this is what there were psychological measurements, right? There was studying of the mind that they could measure and equate things to a degree. And this was something that was profound. It was not only profound but prolific to the capacity to where they said, no, this is what it is about. They got to the space of where they knew, like I like to say, the isness of the business when it pertains to life. They got to that space, right? But Faise, when it comes to say crystals and information, what's the connection to you? Because there's a correlation with crystals and stars also, but what's the correlation between crystals and stars and information and et cetera, et cetera?
Well, a lot of it has to do, it's a good question. A lot of it has to do with imprint. The key word is imprint. So if I hand you a glass cup, and I say, this is for the purpose of good luck, right? You might
Right.
walk around with a glass cup in your hand. People think you just waiting on something to drink. No, you walking around because you've been told and it left an imprint that this is going to bring you good luck. Well, in all intentions, start moving in that direction. Okay, that's where a lot of egregores are spawned. That's where a lot of people's whole lives are switched and turned and flipped around based off of one idea or a suggestion, and it leaves an imprint. Like, for instance, how valuable would you say gold is?
It's as valuable as my need to utilize it.
There you go. There you go. So watch this. People walk around with it on their neck. Why? But in a way, they're still using it because at that point, they're pulling on other resources, which is what? What are those other resources? The people who observe the gold, all right, and pave a way for them. You walk in, somebody walks in with a big, expensive jewelry on, diamonds or gold, whatever it is. People start handling them differently, treating them differently. Okay, these things start operating as what's referred to as status what? Symbols. Okay, and those symbols leave an imprint in the mind of a person. Okay, like even if you take the jewelry off, people just looking at a shirt, you walk in the room with a jewelry on, they'll treat you differently than when you walk in without the jewelry. And oftentimes it's the person who doesn't even have the jewelry on who is in the highest position to offer wisdom and experience and value as far as the provision of value. But do people care about that? No. They only care about what is left as an imprint, which is why if somebody says, yo, I rebuke you in the name of, you don't got to finish the sentence because that's already imprinted in people's mind. All right. Words that were put together by somebody. And then all of a sudden, people will finish it for them when that sentence comes up because it's an imprint in the mind. Same thing with crystals. These are crystals. They have properties that can be used for certain things, literally. But ask people how many times they use quartz to build a phone. No, that's not what people are using quartz for. People are using quartz to protect themselves from demons and don't even know what demons are. Now, is it their fault? No. The imprint was left by somebody that said, hey, wear this stone and demons won't fuck with you. They put on a stone and these people dying in car crashes and everything. Never thought to wear stones or crystals that could protect them from that. No. You understand? The key thing is like this. You have people who knew that if I take this, okay, for instance, if I use a crystal, I can use a crystal to make certain things work. We got crystals in our phones, all right? Whoever or whatever formed the diagram or the livogram, which became the living thing of the human body, thought, oh, I think it'd be interesting if we put crystals in the brain to help with conductivity or productivity. You understand? Or both, if you depend on how you look at it. Whatever these crystals will be used for, we can form technology with them, and they do it all the time, including melatonin. Even with melanin, it don't even have to be crystal. People put melanin in technology all of the time. So let's say if I'm walking around with my house and you see me with batteries on my neck, would you think I'm spiritual, or would you think something might be a little off with me? And you say, why you got all these batteries? Well,
Yeah, they think
this helps.
you one of them tinfoil niggas.
Right. Well, but why would I be walking around with tinfoil? Let's deal with the battery. If I'm walking around with batteries, somebody has to say, yo, they got on the Ankh or these crystals or malachite or amethyst and all these other things on them. And they say, yo, why you walking around with batteries on, nigga? You look crazy. I said, oh, no, I'm just dealing with duality. This is my duality protection. This is the surge that operates my auric field. The same. People can say that all day, every day. When you start learning the science of a thing, you start realizing that often it goes into one key thing, the transfer of energy. Okay? That's what allows us to use this phone. And if my phone were not on a charger, eventually it'll do what's called die out. And I would need to send another electric surge through it. All right? Energetic transfer. A couple of different types of energetic transfer happen even then when you got heat transfer, all the different type of transfers. But that's what causes this machine to function. And then I can use it. Same with the Ankh. Same with the gun. Okay, there's always some type of energetic transfer. You have potential energy, kinetic energy, and all the different ways you can use it to start things in motion and get things done. Okay, now if somebody is using a crystal, they just walking around with it, that's fine. They might have power in the imprint alone of the thought of being able to use it for protection, and then their psychic self-defense is set up anyway. That's not a bad thing. I hope people don't think I'm trying to disrespect people who believe in crystals. What I'm saying is it still could work. The same way you have the placebo effect. All right. Even when you say placebo, at the root word of it, you just got place, imprint, a marking, where it holds a place in your mind that when I use this, it's going to help in some type of way. Some people walking around with a gun. Okay. That doesn't mean that it's going to stop them from losing their life. All right. But it can help. So my answer to you when it comes to the crystals and information is the keyword imprint. I can put any piece of information on a crystal. Look at the word we're using, crystal. We could have called it anything else. We could have called it Bombi clot, and nobody would have cried. It just would have been a word that people were using to this day, right? So if I say malachite, I mean that. Yeah, you're going to repeat that. If I say amethyst, I mean that. Yeah, you're going to repeat that. And generations to come, so long as you're still speaking whatever language that word was uttered in, people are going to repeat that word. Question will be, with that information of the name alone and the quote unquote properties alone, do you have enough information to actually, like you said, use it or put it to great use? What is the utility in it? So when it comes to crystals and information, I would encourage people to gauge the futility and the utility in that aspect. If it's futile to know that this crystal does a thing and you're not able to actually prove that it does that, then sit the thing down. You don't need it, right? But if it's useful to learn that it does it and you actually can use it, then you pick it up. It's good to know it either way. It's just when it comes down to plugging up your phone, that's an element also that could be used. All right, the battery is an element that could be used. And you might use malachite to say, I need healing, and you wear a malachite bracelet around your hand, and if it starts feeling better, okay, great. You just use that element as an imprint of healing and having that property in your mind already, and you actually start reversing the current, and it encourages healing in the body. That can happen also with simply something is like the placebo effect. Make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. Um, Get the door for me, Ru. So you have the understanding of crystal. You know, when people talk about ancient societies, right? They oftentimes talk about how the ancients knew about the crystals so much more than we did, and did these supernatural things with the crystals that we could never imagine, and things of that nature. Do you believe that that is true?
That we could never have imagined these things without them? No.
No, not that we couldn't imagine these things, but that they actually did things that with the crystals that we can't even imagine or fathom. As if, you know, the way that we use crystals today and technology is like minuscule to the degree of how they were utilizing the crystals. What do you say to that notion?
Just misinformation, because a lot of what we're doing now is exactly what they were doing. They just had more decorative language to describe what was being done. And that's only because of the language we have to reference, which is English. You understand? Like a burning bush, there was no such thing. You went in the store, you realized the bush didn't burn, right? Whatever the vehicle or craft was that came down, it glowed. But all they knew was fire. I break this down a million times just to show people there's just technology. Tech knowledge. You see, literally, this is your technical knowledge. Tech is a skill. All right. Then you have the ology, technology, the study of your skill. So if you're thinking you can't fathom it, well, then have you visited the scientific research facilities in your communities? Have you gone down to check out any of the advanced buildings where they're showing you the technology that may be coming in the future? Where you can start realizing about the quantum technology that's coming now, the next technological industrial revolution of quantum tech. You can look there and see, wait a minute, all of the theories, as they call it, were there. It was just an engineering thing, meaning what? They had all of the science to know about a thing, science. Now, whether or not they had the skill to produce the effect or to produce what will cause the effect, that's a whole nother conversation. You understand? So I don't think that it's things that were done that we couldn't fathom doing. No. The more you learn science, the more you realize that's all we've ever been saying. Even when it comes to the pyramids, people look at that magically. But then you really study what would even cause psi-org energy to emit, it just goes to the stars. And if that's so hard for people to fathom, is the sun not a star? Yes. Do you have something called solar panels? Yes, you do. Are you able to use solar panels to power your house or power a whole facility or a whole civilization? The answer is yes. Okay, there you go. Psi-org energy. The sun is a star, and so is those stars that they said they would utilize your energy from. It just depends on whatever type of mode they were able to activate at that point, or whatever type of method they were able to utilize that could draw from that energy. Is it really that magical? If I write a story and I say, and then he pointed the stick and fire blazed from it, okay, and the man was no more. That's like, wow, that's amazing. And then we just say today, he shot him. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? He shot him. Niggas already know that. So it's more decorative. The language, I can understand why people are confused about that. But even the unk that y'all are wearing, you know, that's you're walking around with technology on. And this technology isn't being used. It's now being used as a symbol. You understand? Same
Right.
way, ask the Christians, why do they walk around with the symbol of the murder weapon on their chest? They say, well, that's not what it represents. Well, yes, it does, because that's the whole thing. You literally have certain ones of them walking around with Jesus dead on their chest.
Right.
That's a
Right.
murder weapon. You understand what I'm explaining to you?
Yeah, you're
But
praising.
now they call it a symbol.
Right.
Go ahead.
You're praising the death, but you don't have a symbol for the resurrection. So that's a important point. Now somebody's in the comments. I don't know if the person's here. My old lady said she was looking in the comments. Someone kept asking who I am, what I am. Am I a Christian? Am I a Muslim, or whatever the case may be? I've studied all of those things. I'm originally from Native American territory. I adhere to my Native American traditions and culture. I do a lot of talking about that. I also have Judaism is a part of my culture. You know what I mean? But also Christians are a part of my a part of my family and culture. So me, I'm a person who was born into a lot of cultures, but one who just was a questioner, right? so I question things, right? But I've received certain understandings of those things. So me, I don't put myself in the box of one or the other. I understand them to a good degree. I wouldn't say I understand the totality of it all, but I do understand it to a very good degree. So this is the knowledge that I present to people when I come on here and speak of these things. I don't, and like I said, I don't speak from a place of juxtapose or theory. I speak from a place of experience. If I didn't experience or get the understanding on it, I won't speak on it. That's just me. Unless we're just theorizing, you know what I mean, to that degree. But my religion is not the way most people would see it. My ultimate religion is understanding and love. You know, these are things that I practice religiously. Literally, they are my religion. Wisdom is my religion. You know, that was one of the first things I asked God for, wisdom. You know, so it is my religion. I practice it every day. I revere it. You know what I mean? There are certain rituals that I do to give praise to wisdom. You know, and also admonish it. You know, so typically people want to know which religion you are in so they can understand your ideologies. You know, but if you want to understand me, you would have to get to know me. Studying the Quran wouldn't get you to know me, or studying the Bible, you wouldn't get to know me. You know, and my adherence to these particular things. Just like the same way, I don't think Faise is limited to the material of Malachi Z. York. You know, if I wanted to know Faise, I would have to get to know him and actually communicate with him to develop a relationship with him. So shout out to the brother. I hope that answers your question. Forgive me. My old lady told me you was up there writing it a lot of times, and I didn't get to answer that question. So I hope that that answers the question for you. Faise, are you a religious? Do you consider yourself to be a part of a religion? Uh-oh. Can you guys see Faze?
I'm right
Is
here.
he
Can y'all hear me?
still there? Okay, there you are. Are you a part of any, do you consider yourself religious or a part of any religion?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, my answer is no. No, I do not.
Okay, okay.
Now,
You
if it's necessary, when people ask me certain things, they're like, "Are you Muslim?" I say, "I can be."
right.
Are you Christian? I could. You want to? Where you want to do it? You know what I'm saying? Are you Hindu? It depends on what you're doing Thursday. We can Hindu. It's. I went through these schools on purpose to be able to Hindu when it's time, to be able to Christian when it's time, to be able to Muslim when it's time. And if they ever have an issue with that, they didn't read their books because their teachers had to be able to do that. They had to be able to go and speak to different multitudes and learn their language or their culture and understand about it. All right, to be able to rise them up in the truth, the life, and the way. So what people mean when they say what's your religion, what they're really looking for is who do you put your responsibility of your soul off to? That's what they're
Right.
really trying to ask. Who is it that
Basically.
you are trusting your soul with, right? Who do you deflect when it comes to what you're responsible for? Notice when you ask people, let's say for Christians, not to pick on y'all, but if I say, yo, are you really living like Christ? Are you really living like the one who was called Jesus, or one of the ones who are called Jesus in the Holy Bible? Are you really living like how he lived, right? Or are you moving around in sin? Are you doing whatever you want to do? Are you breaking every law? Some of the ones that they said, you know, were unforgivable sins. And what would they say? Oh, only what? Only God can judge. Because it's a cop out. It says that they can do
Right.
whatever they want to do in a world where they don't really understand about the consequences of their own books. And they say when you ask them the same type of question they asking you, when they asking you what's your religion, you ask them, are you sure about your religion? Are you sure? What do you mean, are you sure? Well, in your religion, it says right now, right, And you ask the Hebrew Israelites this. That's why the Hebrew Israelites go so hard. Okay? And Christians try to act like Hebrew Israelites don't exist because the Hebrew Israelites not playing about that doctrine. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna walk with the Yeshua, you're gonna walk with Yeshua. They'll do it quick. Well, why you dressed in pants? You know what I mean? You're a woman, why you wearing pants? Where's your beard, brother? Where are your fringes? Where's your, they'll get on you quick and they'll say, you have to live like Yeshua did. You have to walk in order. Where your laws, statutes, and commandments? Do you understand them? Do you honor them? You observe the Sabbath or observe the Sabbath, right? Depending on how you look at the word. So my question to those people when they ask me that is, are you sure about yours? That's what I want to know. And if you are, then I have questions for you. Because your religion says you have to do a certain thing, live a certain way, and then there's always an or else. You understand that? So it's so long as you know that you read your contract, because all of you have a contract, and hopefully you understand the word. Because if you're not careful, that means we can con you for a certain amount of time. That's what contract would ultimately mean if you're not competent. Because to con somebody is to manipulate them in a negative way. And a track is a certain amount of time. Go look it up. So long as you're not aware of the terms and conditions, all right, or if you don't speak the legalese or the express terms evade you, go ahead.
The condition.
Right, exactly. And that's key. If you're not understanding about that, then what'll wind up happening? You could be pulled into something you're not aware of even how to get out of. You ever heard of so many artists trying to quote unquote get out of bad contracts? You had to ask them, how did you get in it? How did they?
Because you contracted. You contracted like something, you know what I'm saying? Something came up on you. You know what I mean? Contract comes from contact. You know what I mean? You have to contact something in order to contract something. There's no contraction without contact. You see what I'm saying? And many of you were in contact with a entity or with a being or with an essence or with an energy, right? That wasn't that influenced you to a particular degree, right? You signed that contract because you felt like you needed money. Because you wanted to get your mom out the hood. You signed that contract, right? At the expense of your morals. You signed that contract. So you came into contact with something before you got the contract. Don't miss that.
Hey, you want to know what they call that? What is being called? It's called operating in good faith also. Is it a key word there? Faith is all. It's all in the words. So my thing for everybody is, even the Hebrew Israelites, when I would talk to them, is do you really know what you're talking about? You can know a lot about a little. You can know a little about a lot. You can read the book.
Do you understand it? Do you understand it? I don't care if you know it. You can have knowledge of it, but do you understand what you have knowledge of?
See, that's where it gets interesting, though, because the fact that these religions are rooted in the science of, or the idea of, let's say that, they're rooted in the idea of an extraterrestrial presence, okay? Whether you're dealing with Jesus, they don't like to talk about that. I don't know why. I do my best to just explain to them, listen, family, I respect everything you believe, okay? You can wear what you want to wear, live what you want to do, however you saying it is. It could be in your book this way, da-da-da-da-whoop-de-whoop. What do you actually know about this extraterrestrial called Jesus that you speak of? Do you know that he's there? Do you know that she's there? Do you know that they're there? Meaning, do you know? All of that, I feel it in my spirit. I can feel the goodness in my spirit if I walk in a club and they playing a nice song. Spirit can be affected just by somebody pressing play on a record, and now you're in a good spirit. I feel the spirit. Okay, go to church, catch the spirit, and tell them don't play the piano. Don't play the drum. Don't play the piano. Matter of fact, Pastor, can you be quiet? I'm trying to hear God, not you. Try that on emphasize and see don't they put you out of the church, because you're affecting the business at that point where the emotions are evoked. which people mistake for the Holy Spirit. And then people get up and they start looking, they dancing around. The Spirit is moving through the church. You mean the music that's playing? Tell them to do that without the music. See who gets up and jumping around and falling out and slapping each other without the music. And then you start realizing what's been going on. People have been going to get this feel-good experience. And it's actually a mockery of what you're really dealing with. Because if you realize what your books are talking about, it don't have nothing to do with people jumping up and dancing around and screaming and slapping people in the church. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with fuck around and find out. That's what the book basically said. I read it. It was like fuck around and find out. It's one line in the whole book. It said fuck around and find out. Y'all didn't read it. Because every time y'all did what you're doing now, they destroyed your world. Hello, Christians. If only God can judge you, you in trouble. If only God can judge what just took place for the past 4 years and the things y'all have been screaming to make lawful and the things y'all have been fighting to go against, as a lot of the Christians have somehow turned democratic, which they think is a party. They don't understand that the association has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with whether or not you have a moral compass. That doesn't mean the people who call themselves Republic own the only one they got on file. It just means that did you even pay attention to the very laws and statutes and commandments of the book you say you follow? And then they jump into people like D1, all the people. They jump right into politics. Say they're going to vote. They're going to pick this person to rule over them. They didn't read the book of Romans, chapter 13. Go read it. You're going to read it. Say, who is the main authority over all of this? It's supposed to be God. Okay, well, then God has laws. You don't care nothing about how man has their laws set up then. The only kingdom you're voting for, the only kingdom you're fighting to bring would be the kingdom of the Most High. But then what does that mean? If it means what your story says it means when they come, they're not bringing peace. They're bringing a sword. When they come, they're laying waste to the very kingdoms that y'all are standing in front of people saying it's the Christian thing to do to vote for a leader of. They're saying when they come, they're laying waste to these very kingdoms. And who are these they that we talking about? Let's get very real about it. That would mean there's an extraterrestrial invasion. Stay with me. Some people left. Like 90 people left just then. There's an extraterrestrial invasion that is pending according to your book. And they're not coming to say hi. They're coming to not only lay waste, according to your scriptures, it says, destroy the destroyers of the earth. They're also coming to set up shop. That when they come, they're not just popping up and saying, we don't like that, knocking stuff down. It said, Revelation chapter 21, I will make all things new. This is my world now. Who is that talking? It's supposed to be God. You can't tell me a spirit is doing that. You can't tell me some omnipresent being done came anywhere. Omnipresence mean you already the hell there. You don't have to come anywhere. My point of saying all of this is these religions that everybody is speaking about, if you get into the stories of it, all of it is based on some type of off-planet occurrence. All of it has something to do with things that are happening off-planet, things that are not even occurring here. Angels fighting off-planet in the cosmos, Star Wars.
But
right?
when you say that, when you say off-planet, a lot of people tend to look up at the stars, which is not the correct thing to do. When we're talking about planet, the just planes of existence. So these other planets or these other planes are working in conjunction with this one, just veiled. And many of y'all just don't see it, right? Those energies, those lights from the planet actually come to this earth, right? So they're here on a different plane of existence. Let me ask you this. Can you see Venus's light? That means it made its way here. Can you see Jupiter's light? Can you see Mars? Can you see these? That means that there's another plane of existence that you're just not aware of. The planets are in conjunction with this. There's an interrelation, and many of you just don't realize it. Y'all think that it's got to come from this far away galaxy, when in all actuality, it doesn't have to come from a far away galaxy. It just has to take off the veil.
Exactly.
The veil just has to be
Check
the
this
veil
out.
just
No,
has to be removed.
you on point. Now watch
So
this. This is why I tell them, because I'm watching the comments also. Just pay attention to y'all stories. It's not me that has the delusion. It's not me preaching confusion. If you're going to tell me Jesus is not from earth, not you, Heavy. I'm saying they're books that I grew up reading and I'm very well
right.
versed in. Not just the Bible. We just talk about the Bible. We can go El Quran. We can go to the Vedas. We can get interesting. We're just dealing with one book, and it's already confusion enough that people cannot see one being that's being said to be from another world, another place, another home. Our Father which art in heaven. Now I return unto my Father. Where did he go? To the grocery store? He went to
And
heaven, which would have meant
to
where?
thy hands I commend my spirit.
Which meant he went where? To the cosmos, outside of the planet. You ask people, is Jesus an extraterrestrial? It's just that simple. And watch them glitch and tell me that's not a spell. Tell me that they have not been placed under a ghost spell. Not even having read their own scriptures that said anybody that doesn't confess that whoever that man is came in the flesh would be labeled as an antichrist. Ask them, do they understand that? Why would you be labeled an antichrist just because you don't know, understand, or confess about Jesus coming in the flesh? You want to know why? Because you wouldn't know Jesus if he walked past you, because you're waiting on a spirit. And if I ask you to describe what a spirit is, you don't know. If I ask you to describe the image of a spirit, you can't do that. I said, well, then that's fine. You just saved yourself a whole lot of confusion, because Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 speaks about making man in their image, and you cannot make an image out of a spirit. You would still be a spirit if you were made in the image and after the likeness of the Most High, and you would still have to say, what is that spirit? So point being, if this man left and went to heaven, wherever that is, which is another world or another planet, or maybe on a craft that's sitting outside of your planet, wherever he went, he's not down here. And when he says, our Father which art in Orion, or Oranos, or Shamarim, depending on which words you want to use to put there for heaven or cosmos, our Father which art there, and he returns to his Father, he's going back. I am not of this world. You are from beneath. I am from above. He says over and over and over again, I'm an extraterrestrial. And ask them, is Jesus an extraterrestrial? And they're going to actually confine him to being a spirit. They're not going to realize that every time they say, no, Jesus is a spirit, that's the Holy Ghost, that the more they say that, it gets more confusing. Go ahead.
That philosophy that you're referring to is something called Docetism. This was expressed in the early council of Nicaea. You had different forms of Christology that came to be believed by different sects of Presbyterian early Christians, along with Arianism and a few others. But Docetism is what you're describing, that people that just want to limit Christ to a spirit, that he really wasn't here, that he really didn't exist. It was a phantom, or Christ just means a consciousness, that there wasn't a literal person. Y'all can't have it both ways. If Christ is
Nope.
just the consciousness, okay, then we could talk about it from that angle. But if you believe in the literal story that is being taught to you in that book, then Christ was literally a man also. He walked the earth, right? Not only did he walk the earth, he said to come back, being heralded by the archangel, right? He's going to part the sky, right? So that means he's coming from above. That means he's coming from above. He's coming from somewhere. He said, where I go to prepare a place for you. You see what I'm saying? In my Father's house, there are many mansions. He talks about this place. He talks about this space, right? So you can't get past that subject. What does Christ consciousness say about that? If he's just Christ consciousness, what is that talking about? I'm
It's
going
a
to
cop
prepare.
out.
I'm going to prepare this place for you. And I'm coming back for you. You guys can't have it both ways. You can't be talking about you're a Christian or you believe in the Bible, but you want to talk about Christ consciousness because you want to mix chakra teachings up with the Bible in a particular way. Pick one. Pick a side. You lukewarm, he's spitting you out. Which one is it? Who is the
That means
Christ?
they got, you understand, that means they got lazy.
Yeah,
It's hard, ain't it? You want to know what happened? Y'all tried to play woke. You didn't understand what it was. So then
that's a fact.
you got dropped off at number 7. You couldn't reach 9. That's why everybody went Hindu. That's number 7. That's the 7th level or the 7th degree. Hinduism. Just go to Shiva. Shiva means what? 7.
Mm-hmm.
Understand? All of the religions. 7. 7 day. On the 7th day, he rested or Sabbath. On the 7th day, there was Sabbath. Or then you find that what? Saba or Sabu brings you 7 also. Okay? So you keep looking for 7, 7, 7, 7, and you find Shiva, Siva, Shiva, okay? And you realize that it had nothing to do with anything but Hinduism. The 7 chakras, all right? The build-up of transcendental meditation to get closer to the inner self of the soul. And then y'all came, oh, we're reaching Christ consciousness. But you just siphoned it from the Bible and didn't understand what you were talking about. That's why I said, find me that they said he died at 33 in the biblical scripture. Find it.
Yeah, find that.
Find that.
Because I know where y'all getting that shit from, but do y'all know where it comes from? Yeah, show me. Give me the verse. Give me the chapter, the verse. Where it say Jesus died at 30. I mean, at 33, he started his ministry at 30. We've all heard the story.
No, it never said 33. It did speak on that ministry, but never said 33. Another thing, they say, oh, he died at 33. And that's the end of the story. First of all, it never said he died at 33. And also, if you're really well-versed, and I don't know why people choose Christ consciousness and pick one of the books that talks about him. You know, there's a whole other book called El Quran that speaks about that being, okay, and explains further that he actually was not crucified. And then there are other gospels like the Gospel of Barnabas that speaks about the fact that he was not crucified, that it wouldn't even have made sense, for one. And for two, you're not going to kill God for even a second. Whoever that being would have been, it would not have been allowed. You understand? I'm explaining to you. But then people will want to hold on to what I talked about, that imprint, the idea of somebody sacrificing themselves so that nothing happens to you. The idea of he died for our sins. Why? Why? If he died for your sins, then why is there sin? Now you heard that question. It's not saying why does it exist. It's saying why do Christians still sin then? If somebody already died for your sins, wasn't that enough? Or are you looking for somebody else to die for the ones you're committing now? And they forget that there were people around in that day and time saying, yo, put it on the blood of our children. And these children, if these stories are real, these children live here today. Y'all are the children, a lot of you, who were out there. Your ancestors were out there saying, crucify the man. Y'all are the ones who claiming Christianity now, but it seems that y'all love the story that somebody died for you.
Yeah,
you don't love the story that it's possible he could have evaded death by the hands of the devil and lived on. And when he met with them brothers in the upper room, he actually had not died, and that he left the planet alive, living and well, and got up out of here and away from these devils. That makes less sense to you than the devil proved to be more powerful than the Most High. All right. It also makes more sense to you that when Jesus went and prayed the Father, which is what they say, he prayed the Father gonna listen to him. He went and prayed the Father and said, yo, check this out. They tripping. I'm not rocking with this whole crucifixion thing. And only if it's in your will, let this pass me by. Let this cup pass me by. Only if it's in your will, though. Meaning they just made an agreement. He made an agreement with Abba, his father. He made an agreement with him and said, if it's in your will, let this pass over. Then answer this question for me. Why would Jesus have ever said, Ela, Ela, lama sabachthani? Why would he have ever said, my God,
why have you forsaken me?
Why have you forsaken me? What would be the forsaking at that point if he already made a deal with the Most High, his father, that if this has to happen, he's good with it? He would not have cried out and said, Father, Father, why have you forsaken me? That's not forsaken. You made a deal and said that if it happens, you already know it's a part of it. But then when he spoke to them brothers in the upper room, he said, didn't I tell y'all all these things would happen, even when it comes to Psalms in accordance to me? People miss that. Psalm said his head wouldn't, he wouldn't strike his foot on a stone. Nothing would happen to him. No harm would come to his tent, to Yeshua, the one who will be saved or salvaged. So my point is, if we're dealing with stories like these that are talking about extraterrestrial activity, it's talking about all types of advanced technology, right? If we're dealing with this situation here, you can't fake woke your way out of this one. So Christ consciousness is a cop-out too, because then you just say, oh, I'm just working on, that's where you're dealing with Pythagoras speaking about knowing the body and knowing the universe, and people are misunderstanding that statement or that maxim. No, if you're dealing
And
with
you
Christ consciousness, you're dealing with the ability to communicate with extraterrestrials. You're dealing with the ability to remember that you're not from here genetically. Your bloodline starts off planet. That's what all of this is about. You know what else comes with Christ consciousness? The chosen ones. Everybody wants to be chosen now. They call themselves chosen this, chosen that. Okay, check this out. If you're saying you're chosen family, then that means what you're really saying is that genetically you're linked to beings who did not originate on planet Earth. That's when you have people
watch
like
this.
Yaki.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
chosen goes a little bit deeper than that, because if you were chosen for something. You were chosen to do something. And then you ask people that say they're the chosen people, well, what were you chosen to do? What were you chosen to do? And many people can't answer that question. You brought up a dope thing about scapegoat. People don't know the history of the scapegoat offering, right? You thought that you could crucify God. You really think that you could crucify God and kill God? That's crazy. That's because many of you don't want to die to yourself. The imagery that you created of yourself, the false God that you created, known as the lie, the false self, right? Many of y'all don't want to get to that. We don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about how work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. That's what the scripture says. So there's something you should die to. There are things that you need to die to so that you can resurrect in a particular way. Many of y'all don't want to do that. Many of y'all don't want to die to some of these ideologies. Many of you want to die to these aspects of the flesh. Many of you don't want to die to the things that you have set up to be so powerful. But in all actuality, they're null and void. A lot of y'all don't want to do that. You don't want to do the work. You want to feel like Jesus did that for you. But like Faise said, at the end of the day, then why is there still sin? Because then it would have been done in vain. Isn't that what Paul said? You know what I'm saying? Shall you continue to sin that grace may abound? God forbid. God forbid. You see what I'm saying? Because many of you, that was not the purpose of God, of doing that. If he did, like, this stuff is, to me, religion 101. This is religion 101. And I hate sometimes that we even have to talk about some of this stuff because it's religion 101. We can't get to the transmutations. We can't get into the alchemy of the soul and spirit because some of y'all ain't ready for that. Some of your ideologies got to be destroyed, got to be buried. We got to literally bury everything that you know, the way you perceive reality. You have to die. Same way Neo died. Some of y'all got to die. You know, unfortunately, you brought up something that was very important, right? You brought up this this concept of sin. You know, is sin real? And what is sin? What is sin to you? What you've observed?
Right. Well, sin is real in a lot of aspects. It depends on the protext of the word. Sin, for one, would be most people's understanding of it is, oops, I shouldn't have did that. Simply, oops, I shouldn't have did that. It's a realization, really. With sin couldn't be sin without the realization point where there's some type of remorse that erupts, right? That's why you have psychopaths, where their brain takes a whole nother path, literally. Where they might kill somebody and they feel nothing. Well, then they actually did not sin. We said, well, murder is still a sin. Okay, well, then God sinned. Well, never mind. Yeah, never mind, right? Because God did it for a good thing, right? Okay, how about this? God sinned and repented, right? Genesis chapter 6. He
Right.
killed
Hey,
every
Faye, stay
damn
right
animal.
there. Stay right there. Genesis chapter 6, guys. The live's about to end in 5 seconds.
Copy.
Come right back. We're coming right back.